Hi, everybody. It's Chris F. Walker with the Christian Influencer Convention, and I am joined today by a powerhouse couple. These guys, when you think of American couples, they like stand out. This is who everyone thinks, an American couple should be, and I just love watching their content, sharing their stories, sharing their life. You guys are so much fun to watch, but thank you for joining us today, Hunter and Devin Cordell. And you guys have been just like the most fun. I grew up in Colorado, but spent a lot of time in the South. Yeah. And I don't know what it is about the South, but boy, when you go into that culture down there, you just get assimilated into it and it becomes who you are. You guys just live it out so well. I just love watching it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for having us. We're excited. Yeah, we're so excited to be a part of it.
I'm so glad you guys could join. And the biggest thing today is literally just to get to hear your guys' story.
Yeah.
And so I want to kick it off with, why don't we just start with kind of at the beginning? How did the Cordell family become what you are? I mean, you're YouTubers. Everybody always wants to be that nowadays. And here you guys are doing it. So how did that come about?
Yeah, it's still wild to even say that. And like hearing you say that, I'm like, wow, he's right. Like I always wanted to be a YouTuber and here we are.
Yeah.
I will say, it started about 2 years ago. I was pregnant with our daughter, Ivy. And at that point, I was like, I know I want to do it, but it's like, how do you do it? And so we were in the Smoky Mountains on our anniversary trip. And Hunter was just like, you just got to do it. And I was like, okay. So I literally took my iPhone and just started filming. And I edited it through my phone and just was like, okay, this is a start. Mm-hmm. So from there, we just did little vlogs here and there. Mm-hmm. And then I would say it was about 9 months later that I started TikTok. It was honestly therapeutic for me because I was doing a lot of mom content. I was a stay-at-home mom. Mm-hmm. Hunter was a firefighter. So it just gave me something to do. The cheesy trends, all that. I was not expecting us to just have the following we have. It wasn't until Hunter started making his appearance in our TikToks and filming more just like our everyday candid moments. Mm-hmm. And that's what I guess everybody wanted to see. And that just in a month, we went from 25,000 followers to 1 million followers. And it's wild how it all just happened.
That's just insane. I mean, to go from 25,000 to 1 million in such a short period of time, that's just amazing.
Yeah, I still, that number to me is still, like if you go to a football stadium and you're like, oh, this sits like 60 to 80,000 people and you're like, what? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's wild.
I think it was I'm probably not the best guy in the country in history to quote, but I think it was Joseph Stalin who actually said that one man's tragedy is a tragedy, but 1 million men is a statistic. It's a number that's so far out of realm we don't even comprehend it sometimes. So
right.
Yep.
That's just amazing. Okay, now, so let's go over to Hunter. You were a firefighter. Now, are you still working as a first responder too, and doing any volunteer work?
No, I'm not anymore.
Awesome. So this lets you actually step away and kind of focus on family now.
Yeah, that's right, and it's nice. It's very nice being able to be home every night with Devin and Ivy, our daughter. So yeah, I don't have to be away from them. Mm-hmm. So it makes me feel better, makes her feel better.
Yeah.
Good for us.
It wasn't an easy decision.
Yeah, definitely not. I do miss it. But I'm glad that I'm able to do this.
Oh, that's beautiful. Because I actually, I understand the concept, not necessarily from the first responder side, but I was military. Mm-hmm. And there's a bug for the people who want to serve and are willing to charge in when others are running away. And to have that bug on you and then to kind of see what the reality of the world is, it draws you in. There's friendships that you make there that you'll never change, that last for a lifetime. But just like you, when the time came where don't get me wrong, I loved the work I was doing. I loved the impact I was getting to have. But when it comes time to, do I get to spend time with family or do I got to go, overseas again and do some more military stuff? I'd rather spend time with my family.
Right.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I know, it's just awesome that we have the opportunity to be able to do that.
Right.
I mean, never in a million years did we think that he would be able to quit that job. I mean, that was our primary income.
Yeah.
to do social media. So it's such a blessing for sure.
Well, that's actually, there's a kind of faith walk in itself. How did you guys overcome that? Because there's a security when you have that kind of, stable income. And then you're going to do things like this. And this is, don't get me wrong, it can pay bills, obviously. And it can, in some cases, give you more than enough. But in other cases, it's feeble. And it can come and go so quick. How did you guys decide that you said, you know what, I think this is something we're going to dive into headlong, knowing that, it doesn't quite have the security that some of the other jobs out there do?
Yeah. Whenever we first started, at that point, I wasn't working. I was a stay-at-home mom. And so we had figured out, I'm like, okay, he was a firefighter. It got our bills paid, great insurance, all of that. So we felt secure enough for me to stay home. So then when social media happened, it was just felt like a blessing, right? And so just being able to get more than enough. And then, so from there in our minds, we were like, well, he still will keep that job for security because we don't want to lose that. That was fear. Yeah. And so for a few months, it was just us praying about it. And it just, I knew, I was like, he doesn't have to work. Like, we could do this full time. But I knew that I just kept encouraging him. I'm like, you pray about it, get in the word about it. Because I was doing the same thing. But I didn't want him to feel like I was forcing it. I was like, he needs to hear it from Jesus, not me. Yeah. And so he did. Yeah. And you can pick it from there.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was a lot of time and prayer, like she said, about it. And it was a really hard decision, but I felt like the Lord was calling me out of that. And honestly, at the time, I wasn't really sure. I'm like, I don't know if this is what I want for myself. And Devin can attest to that. It's like, I got to a point to where I was like, I do not want to quit, but I feel like I'm supposed to. And I battled that for a little bit. And then I was finally just like, I had like one day in particular where I was like seriously in prayer about it. And it was a Sunday and we went to church and everything lined up and I was like, okay, I have to quit. Yeah. It was amazing how God was like, literally stop, you know?
Which is so opposite of what everybody else thinks. They're like, oh, he gets to live this luxurious lifestyle now. And really it was the opposite. He didn't want to. He didn't want to quit. I mean, it sounded nice. Like, yeah, I'd be home with them. But in reality, like, I don't want to lose the security. I don't want to lose the family you make up there. And so it was a testimony in and of itself of where God showed up and how he knows what's best for us, even if we don't want that or think we want that.
That's right.
And so that was really powerful in our life and walk with Christ at that time. Yeah. Because we really witnessed his will prevails. Yeah. So
that's awesome. So, and there's actually, when it comes to work like that, law enforcement, firefighters, first responders for, ambulance, there's so many different areas where people step into this. But one thing that's a big lure for it, I guess, I don't know if lure is the right word. How about just a fulfillment factor is when you do your work and you see it have the effect on the people that you've helped. You're like, I contributed and I feel good. Like I was able to do something for someone who needed it the most. And there's a lot of self-fulfillment that comes from that. Now you guys are more kind of kingdom builders, and you guys actually kind of share your faith a little bit more, and you're seed planters, which is what we're called to do. But the hardest part about that is we don't always see the results. Where a firefighter, you go pull someone out of a car accident, you contributed to helping that person. Right. You had hands on them. But once you share the gospel, all you're doing is putting out a seed, and the control of what happens after that is totally not in your hands anymore. Yeah. That's where, so I actually understand your reluctance to let go of that, because I went through it too. That was actually something I had to endure. Very cool. Yeah. So since you guys talked about how your faith was a big deal about whether or not this is the direction we're going to go, why don't we kind of step back a little bit and let's start talking a little bit about how you guys' faith journey kind of walked through it. Whoever wants to go first, but did you guys grow up in the church? Did you come later to the faith? Where mom and dad? I mean, you guys are right in the middle of the Bible Belt. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah, I grew up in a church since I was a baby. I went from Southern Baptist to Methodist to non-denominational. So regardless of that, I'm thankful that I knew who he was at such a young age and knew about Christianity because I was raised in it. But I will say it wasn't until like high school years when I truly found, relationship over religion. Because I feel like the whole from young to teenager, I was just religious, and so really forming that relationship in high school, I was like, okay, this is real, this isn't just some thing you see in the South, Bible Belt, whatever. Like having truly know who Jesus is, it changed my life. It saved me from who knows what, and I felt like I had no purpose leading up to the moment of finding who Jesus was, and being like, that is who I'm living for. So
beautiful. Okay, Hunter, how about you?
Yeah, so I didn't really grow up in church. We would go every now and then, but of course, my parents were Christians, and we would talk about, but we didn't really physically go to church majority of the time until I was in middle school, and then we kind of started going a little bit. But when I started going is when I turned 16, and I started going with Devin to the church that she was going to, and so that it's in itself wasn't necessarily life changing like right off the bat, but like me making that decision to go with her would eventually, end up be life changing for me. So same as her though. And we kind of realized it together, that, we both needed Jesus like way more than we ever thought, when we were kids, and same for me too, is that's when, I started the relationship over the religion as well. And of course we're still working on that, but
and I think we were high school sweethearts, so we were dating each other, and I feel like we were putting each other where God should be. And so that just messes up priorities in and of itself. So really that's what he meant by us kind of figured it out together. It's like, okay, we aren't each other's God. Nobody can be your God but God, because we're human. We're going to fail. So really just like, we learned a lot through that.
Definitely.
Beautiful.
Jesus first.
Yeah. I think you probably just hit on something that most counselors are trying to, every time somebody comes in their office and does any kind of marriage counseling, they're trying to remind them that if your happiness is hinged on your spouse, you're screwed. I mean, I don't want to put it any more simple than that, because we're broken people, and the whole point of a marriage is to kind of help emulate that you're going to be able to love somebody even when they are not a perfect person, even when they make things happen that you didn't want, or when they make decisions that you don't agree with, and you still got to choose to love them. And in today's day and age, everybody kind of does that whole like, well, you didn't do what I wanted, so you're gone. It's the cancel culture, and you guys are pointing out right from the beginning that, you went through that, but you realized that it's the wrong way to approach it.
Yeah.
So that's gorgeous. Thank you so much for sharing, G. Stephen, that little bit. Okay, great. So you guys started having a personal relationship. Now, I actually did not know. This is actually news to me. I didn't know you guys were high school sweethearts.
Yeah.
I actually thought you guys met a little bit later in life, maybe college years. But wow, that's really cool. So you guys,
it was the end of 8th grade.
Yeah.
Wow. I don't even think I remember who I was dating in 8th grade. Like,
I know we've been married almost 6 years this December.
Yeah.
And then we've been together 11 years.
Wow, that is amazing. How cool is that? So you guys, that means you went through all the high school drama together.
Yes. Yes, we did.
And survived.
Like, no wonder this is rare. Like, I just look at now that we're, I'm almost 25, he's 25.
Yeah.
I'm like, we were so immature.
Yeah.
Like, how did we make it? Or, but
we talk about often like how much we thought certain things mattered then.
Yeah.
And how they
in the grand
realistically didn't matter at all.
Sure. Yeah. The perspective on things is a big deal. And actually a lot of when we study the Bible, most of, I can't say most, but a good portion of the lessons that are being taught in there is to say, put your perspective right. Quit looking at the wrong things and putting them in places they don't belong. Have a truth that tells you this is how things work. This is what the importance and priority is, and put them where they belong. And when you do that, it works. It doesn't mean that you're free of hardships. It just means that you'll be able to work through them correctly.
Yeah.
So that's gorgeous. Okay, great. So now that on an individual basis, you guys kind of had your own little walks, and in about high school, you guys kind of really started having a personal relationship with God. But now as a couple, and you guys have already alluded to it, but where did God start coming in now on how you guys work together? Because we can have our own personal relationship with God, but we can still screw it up with the other person if we don't put him center. So how'd you guys kind of work through, putting him at the forefront of everything that you're doing?
Yeah.
It was honestly kind of all at that same time when that happened. I think it was probably junior year. We were like maybe 17 or so. And we both just kind of had this moment to where we knew that we wanted to be together. We were like making a decision, like we want to, do this for the long haul, basically. And then, so it was at that time that we discovered, like, we need Jesus more, like I said, more than what we ever thought. And then we need to put him over each other and between us, you know what I'm saying? Like a triangle. And, if we do that, then it'll be a better relationship for us.
Because we would know how to like love each other better and love each other through things because because
of the grace and
because of the grace, and I can show him grace and vice versa because of the grace God shows us.
Right.
And so that's just bled into our marriage. And obviously we're not perfect. We'll have arguments and stuff. Who doesn't? But then we're like, okay, our priorities might have flipped a little bit. So let's have our time apart. And then anytime our personal relationship with Jesus is, I know when mine's at the strongest and so is his, like we just go so well together, and it's because of the spiritual order, having God first. It just takes the pressure off of like having to be a perfect spouse, and it just makes it so easy. I know it still can be hard, but easier than it could be, because of grace.
Actually, I'm a horrible human being in the flesh, so there's a part of me in the back of my head that's going, next time my wife's arguing at me, I'm just going to say, if you want perfection, you should have had Jesus. But that probably won't be the correct phrase at that particular moment. But okay, great. So you focused really heavy around that. So then why don't we talk about, you guys were going to the same church too. So in the churches that you guys, because you went through a few of them and then you landed on especially with the church that you're at now, how much of a role did the church family play as you guys were starting to kind of learn how to meld together and try to build a relationship? Or was it something that you just kind of went where you wanted, or were they actively involved and even trying to help, even maybe when you didn't want it? How involved was the church family side of this?
Into our relationship, I don't really feel like it was heavily involved. I mean, we had a lot of leaders in the church that, we built relationships and stuff, but personally, like, I didn't even have a mentor in the church until now, honestly.
Yeah.
And so there were other marriages within the church that we would like look up to and for, advice. And we had premarital counseling, and that helped a lot. And that like went into our marriage. But honestly, Jesus was the only one who we truly relied on. We didn't, like I said, we didn't really have mentors at that time. But there were people in our life that we could ask for advice for. And
there were people, I think, when we were in high school and stuff, that they were helping us with our relationship with Jesus. I would say that, but nobody that was helping us with our relationship together, or, our relationship with, what I'm saying? Together with Jesus.
It was very all separate.
So it was just separate. Like I had people that were helping me. She had people that were helping her. But like I said, nobody that was like a relationship kind of thing.
Okay, gotcha. So actually, and there's probably something to be said in that too, is the fact that you guys are, showing that, what the big role that the church did was just to help you with your relationship with Christ.
Yeah.
And they just left it at that. But in the context of what it then bled into was it had no choice but to bleed into your family, to bleed into the marriage. So, it's the concept of if we stay focused entirely on who as opposed to what, it tends to be his leadership and his guidance that helps make things mold together. And you guys just live that out. I mean, that's the whole point of testimony in the first place. You guys are proof it works. So awesome. Thanks for sharing that too. Okay, great. So now I know you got your little girl. How many kids have we got total now?
Just one.
Just a little girl? She's spoiled then, huh?
Yeah. She's so sweet though.
Yeah, she deserves it, honestly.
She is an angel.
Oh, gotcha. So unfortunately, if she's anything like a lot of the little girl, I have one friend who's got 6 daughters, and the only thing I can tell you for sure is that man is wrapped around fingers, man. His girls just have his heart. It's so so now is she all about Hunter, or is she more of a Devin girl?
I would say she's more mommy.
Yeah.
Yeah, but she still loves Hunter a lot.
Yeah. She likes me, like, if I'm not around, she's asking where I am. She wants me, but if we're both around, she's all about them.
Yeah, she wants mama. Gotcha. Don't worry though. Once she hits a little bit older, that will flip for a little bit.
Yeah,
so you'll get your time in the sun. I promise.
Yes, I'm looking forward to it.
That's what I told her. It'll switch eventually. Maybe not.
Yeah,
but I'm soaking it up because it's just you. It's typically the opposite. A daddy's girl, but she is a mama's girl through and through right now.
Yeah,
that's so fun. Okay, great. So now, as far as your guys' platform goes, when you guys got your start, it really was just originally first just kind of like, oh, here's some goofy stuff going on. And then as you guys have gone further, I've been seeing a lot of like the newer stuff is you guys are really sharing kind of how the day-to-day goes. But a lot of times when people are watching this kind of content, they get what's on screen and then they start kind of forming their own opinions about life in general, what it might be. I'm just talking with you guys. I'm already picking up the Southern accent again. I just laugh instead of life. So I spent enough time in the South that I swear you could get it. It develops you. You just pick it up. Anyway, but yeah, with the content that you guys do, and you do a very great job of having everything flow. I love when you guys have your little back and forths that never reach a conclusion.
Oh yeah.
And those are a lot of fun. But what's funny too is especially the fact that since Devin, you're so outspoken, right? And Hunter, you're kind of pretty mellowed out, laid back.
Yeah.
So it's so fun to see you two play off each other.
So opposite.
Yeah. So for the people that are watching it, what would you tell them about what happens in the background and some of the warnings that a lot of people get about, like, social media tends to create false narratives, tends to create, unrealistic expectations? How would you guys, what would be some messages you would speak into that concept?
I'm trying to think of, because there's a few things that I would want to touch on. Were you about to say something?
No, not.
In the beginning, whenever we first started, we were getting a lot of comments, and still now, but it was new to me. It was just people were almost infatuated with our relationship, and I can tell they were like putting it on a pedestal and all that. So it kind of made me sad, because I had done that too, and we're human, so we're not perfect. We're going to let people down, and so I just would want to tell people, and I try to, like, I remember in our first few YouTube, we were like, please, like, don't put us up on the pedestal. We don't want to be up there, because what we put out is what we want to put out. We don't put out all the bad days we have or arguments we have, and like, we're still human. We're imperfect. There's days where we aren't all lovey-dovey. There's days that I'm not goofy. I'm more serious, and so social media it has its good and bad perks, because what you see is like, but what am I trying to say?
Basically, it's just, we're normal. We're just like everybody else. We have arguments. We're normal. We're just people. Every probably marital problem that anybody else would have, but it's just, sometimes I don't know. I get what you're trying to say.
Right. It's so hard to roll. Yeah. Like, we're normal. That's what and like when people come up to us, and we love meeting people, and that's one of the first things I say is, if they seem nervous or whatever, I'm just like, no, I'm just a normal person like you, like, and I think it does help when people see people from social media in person. They're like, oh, they are normal, you know, because I'm guilty too. When I would see people on the screen, I'd be like, oh my gosh, you know, you end up idolizing people. And but it's specific in the Bible not to idolize people, but it's because we will get let down, you know, and I'm not perfect at all. And so I don't want people to idolize what they see and then say they see me having a bad day in person. And they're like, oh, you know, and so that's why it's just we're all normal people.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a little hard to put a specific word to it because it is something that actually, if you really think about it, it's never happened in the idols of human history. It's never happened before. No one has had the kind of technology or communications before where something happens and within a matter of seconds, it's all over the world.
Yeah.
And that's not a figurative speech. That's quite literal. You know, with a matter of seconds, the entire world can be aware of something. And then to turn around and use these things for, you know, cat videos and all this other stuff. It's amazing when we think about what human beings tend to do with the technology that we create is so grandiose, and then what we choose to do with it. Even sometimes we look at it and go, was that the right choice? But what's cool is, like you just said, it can work in all directions. Everybody tends to always give the bad rap to the fact that, you know, social media, you're going to get addicted. There's all these other areas. But one of the things that I remember I had to kind of come to grips with was that in the process of explaining some of the things that social media can do to people, you also had to accept the truth that in order for the people who were kind of in that realm to actually hear that message, you got no choice but to put it on social media. Yeah. That's the only way they'll be able to consume it. And so the question becomes, do we, a lot of people tend to say, well, good, do, bad, don't do, but they try to put things in camps so they can just make a yes or no decision. But in life, that's just not how things work. So this could be used just as much for good as it could for evil. Yeah. The question is, what are you going to do with it? So that being said, I love what you guys do with it. Is just so fun too. It's so awesome.
I know. And I will say, like, there are times where I'm like, are we doing what we're supposed to be doing? Are we doing enough? Because we truly feel like, you know, we were given this platform to glorify him. And so that's why on all of our bios, it's all glory to him. And people will see a silly video, be like, how is this bringing glory to him? And so I'm like, God, what am I doing enough? And so because whenever we first started, I was doing a lot of like Bible talk videos. And people were like, where did those go? You know, you must not be Christian anymore. And I'm like, that's just not it at all. And it's because social media, it can have, I was feeling pressure to keep posting things. I remember I was spending like my Bible time just being like, okay, what can I put together to like put out there? So I was not even feeding myself Jesus, you know, I was just doing it for, I feel like, everybody else and not even for him. And so I prayed about it, and he, clear as day, was like, they will see me by your fruit. And from that moment, I've had such a just release of pressure, and, you know, and we make silly videos. We just live our day-to-day life. And if we feel led to share what God's doing in our life at that time, we will, you know, we just listen to him and not everybody else. Because at the end of the day, we answer to him. And so, we've got so many people that just see us having the fruits of the Spirit and like joy and all of that. And they do see something different. And that's like my prayer, is that they see Jesus through us, even if we're not screaming his name, you know, our fruits are, but that I felt like I needed to share that too, because social media does come with a pressure, but it's good that we only answer to him, you know?
Oh, I love it. It sounds like you already got the perspective in the right place too. So that's gorgeous. Hunter, how about when you see new videos come out and everything, are you always fixated more on the response that you're getting or on your own interpretation of the content you put out? I'm actually curious specifically, because that's one thing that I've always struggled with. And as a guy, I know that we're very results driven. Everything should always be, you know, cause and effect. We just tend to do that. That's what we do. You know, that's why when our wives come to us with a problem, they want us to listen. Half the time we're trying to fix what they're like, oh, here's your issue. Let me fix it. And what she just really wants is to share it so she can at least, you know, leave the burden for a little bit. So since we're so results driven, I wanted to kind of single you out a little bit. Are you more focused when you see a new video? Is it like, okay, the content's with the message that I wanted, I'm happy with it, or are you more focused on what kind of results are we getting from the people who are interacting with it?
Probably results. I've never been like, we have friends that are just super into like making sure that everything, cross your T's, dot your I's, like as far as the production and how the video looks and what you say and the editing. And that's just not me. I like to see like, we do the best we can in our videos. And especially like for YouTube videos in particular, because it is more of a production. In a way, I say production, meaning we're still being ourselves. It's not like we're putting on a front, but it's just more time and work involved to do that. But yeah, I like to see the videos perform well, especially if it's something new or fun or interesting that we're doing. And then if they don't do well, I'm like, oh, what could we do to fix this kind of thing? In a way, but in another way, it's also like, I don't know. It's kind of hard to explain. Like,
do you care if I add to that?
Yeah, no. Actually, Devin, I want to direct your side of it too. So
I don't know. I don't really lose sleep over it.
That's
either.
What I was going to say.
If they don't perform well, I'm just one of those things. I'm like, oh, that one didn't do very good, but just move on, kind of thing.
Right.
But in my head, I'm like, I wonder why, But it doesn't bother me to the point of that I'm thinking about it all day or something like that.
So, because social media can end up becoming a numbers game once you do it as your job, right? So we know, like, as long at the end of the day, if it's content we think, because it can be hard because it's not like we do skit based stuff, which then you could really be like, okay, well, let's do this different.
Right.
We literally film ourselves, so we end up having to critique ourselves if a video doesn't do good. You know what I mean? So I've had a piece being like, we post what we post because it's us. We're not having to be different. But because it is a job at the end of the day, because of brands and stuff, there is quota that you have to reach, and you're like, well, I hope people still like us, and want to watch us. But honestly, I think because we know who we're doing it for, and yes, it's a job, but at the end of the day, like, tomorrow's the last day on earth. We can go to bed, rest our eyes knowing like, okay, well, we're doing what he wants us to do. And we shared what he wanted us to share.
Yeah. And we're doing it to the best of our ability.
Like all we can do. Yeah. And that's one thing in the beginning, people would ask us, I think you touched on this in the beginning, just the fear of the not having that, what's the word? Stability. Stability. And people would ask us, what are you going to do if social media fails or crashes? And that was something we had to ask ourselves. But because we know who we rely on and we've already been through so much of it. Like, we know God's plan prevails, and he will, if he wants us to quit social media abruptly, okay, we'll have to give away all those followers. Okay. Because it was never for us.
Right.
It was always for him. And so it just gives us a peace at night, even if it looks like we're not going to be able to do it as a job anymore. We're like, okay, whatever you have next for us, God, we'll do it. So.
I love it. Because I remember I heard a pastor once say, when he was trying to explain the difference between joy and happiness, and he was saying that, with God, we have joy. Happiness is something we all try to seek, and we can do it, but it's something that's in our control. We can actually try and make ourselves happy.
Yeah.
Joy is something that we can't control. That it's something that comes to us as a gift. And so the example he said is, if you won the lottery today, and then tomorrow they said, oh, there was a mistake and all of it got taken away. If you have happiness, not only did you get to see all the, excitement of when the winning ticket hit, but then you have all the detriment and the destruction that comes when it gets taken away from you.
Yeah.
If you have joy, you can be grateful for the gift when it comes, but when it gets taken away, it has nothing to do with your life or who you answer to or your personal attachments to the God and the Creator. So that's exactly what you guys are getting at. Is it's focus on the joy, focus on the kingdom, and then do what you can.
Right. Yeah.
I love it. You guys have got, I mean, you're like years ahead. You guys are in your 20s and I'm sitting there going, boy, I wish I'd have known this stuff, a few decades ago when I was doing it. Awesome. So as far as with the convention that we've got coming up on July 26th, you guys are going to be there with a whole bunch of other, there's going to be a lot of couples, and we got some other influencers who are maybe married but not with their spouse on the platform, and we got some single people. I mean, there's a pretty broad spectrum. But what I've been really grateful for has been that the common thread for all of you guys has been kingdom growth. And if there's one family that has just stood out in my mind, you guys have just focused on God with so many different areas. So I just want to say thanks anyway, because that's the example that's trying to be set anyway. It's not about any one person or any group of people. It's about kingdom growth.
Yeah.
Right.
And what I really like the most is in your guys' testimony and your story, you're sharing that by focusing on that, you end up getting fruits that come your way. You end up getting your needs are taken care of. So you guys are attesting to the biblical story. You guys are you're sharing it. That's what the Bible says, and here it is working.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So let me ask you this one, since we're talking a little bit about faith and how it plays out in our everyday life. How comfortable have you guys now come with taking those steps of faith that are a little bit more scary, but being able to lean on, if I focus on Jesus and he calls me out of the boat into the storm, am I going to be okay? And, you guys have obviously had to do that a few times now in your careers.
Yeah.
So where did you initially get the courage for that? And then has it gotten easier, or is it still terrifying every time you do it?
Gosh, I can think back to when we first got married.
Yeah.
It's easier now because we've already done it.
Mm-hmm.
We've taken like steps of faith. I mean, like steps onto the water, like in the Bible story.
Yeah.
And because we didn't look at things around us and we focused on him, we were there with him. We didn't fall. We didn't drown. Right.
Yeah.
And so those just little bits of testimony, it helps us now. I will say when we first got married, I mean, we were both in college. Well, I was in college at that time. He was working just to pay our bills.
Yeah.
And we had the least amount of money we've ever had. And we were so joyful.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have that worry, but it's because we were like, okay, we can either focus on what could happen or the what ifs or whatever, or we say, no, God's got us. So we good. We can be happy. We can be joyful, you know?
Yeah.
And so I think from then knowing like that when we thought there was no way that we would be provided for, he did.
Yeah.
And
definitely.
And so just little bits like that have happened over our marriage.
Yeah.
To where now, even with social media, just like we talked about, the thought of social media failing or whatever it is, we know that because of what he's done for us and will continue to do, like we just trust him.
Yeah.
That's gorgeous. Okay. So, I'd love to see if there's an example maybe in there for, like one of the ones I always share is, there was a time where my wife and we were $200 shy, and try as hard as I may, I wasn't going to come up with that $200. And it was during a time where, nowadays if someone says, hey, we got to come up with $200, I'm like, we'll figure that out. We can probably, but at the time, if you would have asked me for $20, I'm like, I don't have it. Like, it's just not there. So to have 200, that was an unachievable number. And I remember that on a Friday, we finally just had to throw it up and say, there's nothing that can be done. So it's just what it is. And God, this is something you're going to have to show us how you get it through it. And by Monday, Monday morning, there was a check in the mail, and it was for $200, and it was from something that had happened all the way back when, and it just happened to show up on, coincidences like that. I don't consider coincidence anymore because, I know how faith, but do you guys have any examples where God just kind of showed up and all you could do is say, thank you? I mean, those are humbling experiences.
Yeah, there's a few actually,
several,
and I can't even pinpoint some of them. I'd have to think for a few minutes to like really think back. Do you have one in mind?
I know there's just like what I'm pretty sure that exact thing has happened to us several times, but I think the one thing that kind of sticks out in my head is when Devin was still in school after we first got married and paying for her school. It was kind of one of the things that's like every semester we're like, I don't know where this, I don't know what, and then it happened.
It would just
every
come
time.
out of nowhere. you know?
Yeah. And I don't even remember thinking back now, like where we even got it from, but it just happened.
I think one time we got a check in the mail.
Yeah.
And it was actually from my school, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
And we
we paid
it was the
too much
exact
the semester
amount.
before.
Yeah, it was the exact amount that we needed.
Yeah.
And it was just like, wow. And even this year, there was a time where we weren't getting brand deals for a bit, or the money wasn't coming in, and we're like, well, we have bills to pay. And so, but we were at church and we were doing like a faith promise, because we 100% believe that in tithing has really benefited.
Yeah.
And so we both felt there was one number that popped in our head, and we're like, we need to like give that
to missions,
mission trips.
Yeah.
And we were like, I don't know how it's going to come through, but we literally looked at each other and said the same number that God put on our heart to give to mission trips. And it was probably within the week, and we had gotten paid double what we said we were going to give to missions.
Yeah.
Just crazy.
Yeah. And then even since then, it's like one time on the last day of the month, I was like, we don't have enough to like pay what we're supposed to pay, you know? And then there it is, last day of the month. I'm like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
But
yeah, my wife tends to sometimes point out that I'm still a little atheistic at heart because I grew up that way. But when I see things like that, I'll look at her and be like, you want to see God show off? And she goes, babe, God doesn't show off. But I do think God has a sense of humor. That part but
for sure.
Okay, great. Well, so the final thing I want to, I guess, kind of pull out of you guys, because I want to honor your time, and I know we're coming up towards the end of the hour here. For those of us who are going to be just asking questions, and the audience is going to get kind of hear feedback and get to learn perspectives, and the idea obviously is for us to inspire. But that's that side of the table. You guys are on the other side. You're actually going to be the ones asking, answering questions and trying to share perspectives and speaking into these concepts. So my question for you guys, and I'd love to hear from both of you on this, what does it seem in your eyes to be a success for the event as we roll into it? What would be like, oh my gosh, that was a God moment, and I'm so glad I got to be part of it? And, just what does that look like in your eyes?
I would say for us, especially if there's anybody that is coming to see not only just us, but if there's any other creators that somebody's coming to like, oh, I want to see them, instead of like coming to hear like what the Lord says through us. If just one of those people can have their lives changed by the Lord, like whether it be through us or through anybody of the people that are going to be there speaking, like for us, that would be all worth it.
Yeah, just one person.
Yeah,
even one person, just to give their life to Christ and to be saved, and and because we're just vessels, we're broken vessels, we're imperfect, but we just pray that He uses what He's done in our life, and He can speak through us and just help one person change their life forever.
That's beautiful. Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for even being a part of all this. I mean, it's been a God story from so many different angles, and that's why doing these interviews has actually been a lot of fun, especially for a young couple like yourselves, especially with how fixated you guys are, making sure that God is at the center of what you're doing. So thanks a lot, really, for joining us.
Thank you.
And we're going to see you guys live on July 26th, right? On July 26th, South Point, Las Vegas, Nevada. It's actually on the boulevard, but it's not in the strip. But it's just south of there, so it's going to be a great place. There's a lot of good fun things to do. We're going to have, at the event itself, there's going to be live music, there's going to be worship, there's going to be obviously the panels where we get to talk to everybody. There's meet and greets going on. It's going to be a very packed day, a lot of fun, and we will have on site some pastors and some grief counselors and things like that, just in case God decides to move in somebody's heart. We don't want them to feel like they're alone. They're going to have some people there that can kind of help walk through each step as we get ready to roll forward, and whatever that walk is going to look like for them. So thank you guys so much for joining us. God bless each of you. I just really, really do appreciate you guys spending the time with us. And for those of you who joined us, I want to thank you for chiming in. Hunter and Devin, you guys are just so wonderful. I look forward to seeing you in person again. And we'll catch you guys here soon, okay? God bless.
Yes. Bye.
Yes, bye.